This is a story about a discovery that changed everything, about how desperation, genius, and accident collided to rip open the fabric of space itself. It begins not on Mars, not in the polished lounges of Jaunt terminals, but right here, New York's Port Authority terminal. Still gungy after centuries, still unsettling. Except now, it's a gateway. A cheerful automated voice announces the last call for Jaunt 701, bound for Whitehead City on Mars. Passengers are asked to prepare, to sleep, to surrender. Upstairs, it's cleaner, quiet, sterile. Gray carpet, white walls, swirling colors on the ceiling meant to calm the nerves. Neatly spaced couches cradle the travelers while attendants drift between them, soft-voiced, offering milk. Armed guards flank the entrance. On the far side of the room, the slide. A trough in the floor that leads to somewhere else, somewhere not on Earth. The Oates family lies near the back. Mark, his wife Marilis, and their two kids, Ricky and Patricia. First jaunt for all of them. Mark had been transferred to Mars for work, 2 years, and after long debate, they'd decided to go as a family. Now, waiting for the gas, for the crossing, nerves start to show.
Daddy, will you tell me about the jaunt now?
Ricky asks. He had promised, so Mark begins. The jaunt, he explains, was born over 3 centuries ago, in 1987. A private experiment turned world-changing revelation, discovered by a man named Victor Carroon. The world doesn't know the exact date because Carroon was eccentric, or maybe just broke and secretive. Mark is keeping an eye on the attendants. They're rolling in the gas. Masks, nozzles, the quieting agent. Once you're under, the jaunt happens. But awake? Awake is unthinkable. So Mark keeps talking, buying time, keeping the kids calm, especially Patty, nervous, giggling too much. He hopes she doesn't resist the mask. Teleportation, that's what it is. Carroon called it the jaunt, after a word from an old sci-fi book, The Stars, My Destination. In that book, you could jaunt, just by thinking. Not here, not in reality. In reality, it took metal, wires, power, and sleep. He goes on about oil crises, OPEC, how the world was collapsing under its own thirst for energy. Then came the jaunt, a miracle just in time. They found oil on Mars, water in Martian ice, salvation in the stars. But the real story, the first story of the jaunt, that began with a man in a barn and a box of white mice. Victor Carroon came back to his lab in a frenzy, practically vibrating with what he'd discovered. He was broke, less than $100 to his name, but he didn't care. His mind was somewhere else entirely. He'd bought 9 mice, nearly crashed his truck twice, and had no gas left for the week. But none of that mattered, because something impossible had happened. In that barn, at the end of a dirt road, stood the machinery. 2 portals, a cloud chamber, a lead shield, and an ion gun. The setup had only worked twice in years, and he never knew why. Then, by accident, his fingers slipped through one portal, and his hip nudged the power switch. The machine hummed quietly. He didn't even realize what had happened until he felt it, a tingling in his fingers. They weren't on his hand anymore. He had teleported the first 2 fingers of his left hand across the barn, and the world would never be the same again. Carroon wrote later, "It wasn't like an electric shock. No harsh zap, no pain like grabbing a frayed wire. More like the faintest vibration, like a machine working overtime. A soft tingling that's almost soothing." Then he saw it. His index finger sliced diagonally through the middle knuckle, the second finger gone a bit higher, and the nail of his third finger missing. He jerked his hand back, expecting blood, even hallucinating it for a moment. His elbow knocked the ion gun off the table as he stood frozen, fingers in his mouth, whole and real. He thought maybe he'd worked too hard. Then the possibility hit. Maybe the last adjustments had actually done something. Carroon didn't try to push his fingers back through. In fact, he only jaunted once more in his life. He wandered the barn, mind racing should he call Carson or Buffington. Then an idea struck. He ran to Portal 2, hoping for proof. Nothing visible, just the machine perched on orange crates, looking like a toy guillotine missing its blade. He checked his watch. Time was running out on his computer access, his lifeline for research. The proof, he thought, was subtle but undeniable. It was just himself he had to convince at first. Mark paused, watching the kids lean in, even Marilis caught up in the moment. Karun found 2 splinters in his index finger. One got lost, but the other, it's locked in a glass case in the Smithsonian Annex, right next to moon rocks, the very first object teleported across space. The kids asked if it was from Earth or Mars. Mark smiled. Just Earth. Karun ran back to Portal 1, heart pounding, steadying himself. Nail clippers out, he carefully dug the splinters free and dropped them on a Hershey bar wrapper. One rolled away forever, the other became a historic artifact. Calmer now, Karun grabbed a pencil and slid it into the portal. It vanished inch by inch, like a magician's trick. He circled to the other side, saw it sliced cleanly, then dashed to Portal 2, where the missing piece lay on the crate. Heart hammering, he pulled the pencil through and wrote on a barn board. It works, snapping the lead on the last letter. He laughed loudly, startling swallows from the rafters. Works, works. Do you hear me, Carson, you prick? It works. Mark grinned, warning the kids about language, but they were hooked. Next, Karun tossed keys through. They jingled perfectly on the other side. He tested them, door lock, file cabinets, even his pickup truck. Everything worked flawlessly. The lead curtain and ion gun were useless now. The ion gun smashed beyond repair, but it didn't matter. He'd done it. The impossible was real.
Karun pocketed the keys and took off his watch. A Seiko Quartz LC with a built-in calculator. 24 tiny buttons under the face. Delicate, complex. He placed it at Portal 1 and nudged it through with a pencil. Running to the other side, he snatched it up. It had said 11:31:07 going in. Now, 11:31:49. Perfect. Time passed normally. He should have had someone stationed there to log it, but soon there'd be plenty of assistance. He ran the calculator. 2 plus 2 still made 4. Square root of 11. Still 3.3166. Everything intact. Time for the mice. Mark hesitated as Ricky asked what happened next. Patty leaned forward. Marilis listened, silent. Mark smiled, too wide. There was a slight problem, he said. In truth, horror, madness, death. Karun opened the box of mice from Stackpole's House of Pets. The watch on his wrist, he put it on upside down, read 1:45. Less than 90 minutes of computer time left. He giggled. He pulled out a squirming white mouse and placed it in front of Portal 1. Go on, mouse. It bolted, right off the crate, across the floor, and vanished to a crack in the boards. Shit, Karun yelled. He slapped the lid shut just in time to keep more from escaping, grabbed another by the body, not the tail this time, and shoved it through the portal. A soft thump from across the barn. He sprinted. No need to rush. The mouse sat motionless, eyes dull, sides barely rising. Karun crept up, touched it, stiff, lifeless in everything but breath. He snapped his fingers in front of its eyes. It blinked and dropped dead. Mark grinned again at the kids. It was retired with full honors, he said. Karun slipped the body into a paper bag. Maybe Moscone the vet could dissect it. The government would lose their minds if they found out. But Karun didn't care. Then he remembered. No gas. Not enough to get to New Paltz, let alone back. 2:03. Less than an hour. He'd deal with the vet later. He built a makeshift chute, the first jaunt slide as Mark called it, and dropped a new mouse in. It sniffed, paused,
and vanished. He ran. Dead. Again. No blood, no rupture, just gone. The time it took to travel was too short for oxygen deprivation. Still, the mouse had expired like the last. He slipped it in with the first. Another mouse. Karun pushed it through haunch first. Across the barn, he saw its rear legs twitching, clawing at the wood. Just the haunches. He yanked it back. The mouse was not catatonic. It bit his hand hard, drawing blood. He dropped it back in the box and bandaged the bite. 211, gloves on, he shoved the next mouse through backward. This one lived nearly 2 minutes. It staggered, collapsed, rose weakly, staggered again. He snapped his fingers. It moved, then stopped. Breathing slowed, stopped. Dead. Another mouse. This one he pushed through head first, but only halfway. Across the barn, the head, neck, and chest emerged blinking. He jogged over. Alive, but barely. The pink eyes stared, whiskers still. He stepped behind the portal and saw what no one had ever seen, the inside of life. The spine ended in clean white circles. Blood moved through vessels. Tissues pulsed with breath, gently. Then stopped. It was dead. Karun pulled the mouse out by the snout, uneasy, and dropped it in the paper sack with the others. Enough with the mice. Those that went through fully or halfway head first died. Only the ones pushed halfway butt first stayed lively. What's in there? Sensory input, maybe? Something they see, hear, or feel that kills them. He didn't know what, but he planned to find out. With nearly 40 minutes left before his computer time expired, he grabbed a thermometer from his kitchen, put it through the portals at 83 degrees Fahrenheit, and it came out the same. Then he found some balloons, blew one up, sent it through, intact. So no sudden pressure change. 5 minutes to go, he rushed inside, grabbed his goldfish bowl, and shoved it through. At the other end, one fish floated belly up, the other dazed but alive, until it too floated dead. Karun fed the survivor extra food and buried the dead one. After hours cut out, Karun hitchhiked to the vet with his bag of dead mice. Mosconi dissected one immediately, finding it perfectly healthy except for being dead. Depressing. On the way home, Karun realized jaunting could solve a massive chunk of the energy crisis. No more transport by trucks or planes, letters reaching halfway across the world instantly. The jaunt was a game changer. Mark explained to the kids that Karun kept asking what killed the mice, because that was the big mystery. Jaunting promised space conquest too, like crossing a stream on stepping stones, rock by rock, system by system. When the government finally took over, Karun was sidelined. The public myth turned him into a mad genius hero, though behind the scenes, he'd become a rubber stamp, fading into a grandfatherly figure. The Jaunt's announcement in 1988 shook the world economy. Oil prices crashed, stock markets soared, and by 2045, oil was a relic, replaced by water prospecting as the new gold rush.
What about the mice, Daddy? Patty pressed again, growing impatient.
Mark glanced toward the jaunt attendants nearby, who were already prepping others with gas. Ricky nodded, but Patty looked unsettled, as a woman fainted from the mask's fumes. "Can't Jaunt awake, right, Dad?" Ricky asked. Mark smiled and nodded. Karun figured that out early, before the government took over. "How did they get involved, Mark?" Marilise asked. Mark explained. "Computer time. The database controlling the particulate transmission. Billions of pieces of info. The computer's what keeps you from coming through scrambled. Marlies shuddered.
Has it ever happened?
Not yet, Mark said, though she muttered, there's always a first time.
How'd Karoon know you had to be asleep, Rick?
When he put the mice in backwards, Ricky said slowly. They were fine, only messed up when head first. Mark confirmed. The Jaunt attendants moved in, so Mark hurried. The experiments showed unconscious animals survived. They were drugged, put through, and came out alive and well. No long-term effects on them or their offspring. When did people start, Dad? The first human jaunters were convicts, volunteers, with no psychological screening. The freakier the better. If they survived, so could anyone. Mark told about 6 volunteers gassed and jaunted in Vermont. All returned fine, except a rumored 7th. Rudy Foggia, a convicted murderer, offered freedom if he jaunted awake.
Faja went through, came out alive, but changed. Hair white, eyes blank, drooling. He said only, "It's eternity in there." Then died of a heart attack. Scientists were left with the chilling truth and his corpse. Hattie insisted again.
What happened to the mice?
Mark sighed. He hadn't meant to dive so deep, but now had to tell her what he knew. No one really knew for sure. The jaunt was instantaneous physically, but mentally stretched over a long, long time. Consciousness didn't break down. It experienced some warped sense of time. Ricky's eyes sharpened.
It's not just teleportation, is it? It's a time warp.
Something like that, Mark said, troubled. Consciousness might endure endless years alone inside the jaunt, trapped with only its own thoughts. How long? 100 years? A billion? The mind could amuse itself, or destroy itself. Before Mark could say more, the attendants arrived with their gas cart. Hattie whispered she was scared. Mark calmed her, saying he'd go first. The mask came down. Mark breathed deep and slipped into the dark. He surfaced to the black Martian sky over Whitehead City, stars blazing above, but chaos erupted. Shouts, screams. Marlies staggered, pointed trembling. His son lay on a jaunt couch, hair snow white, eyes yellowed and ancient beyond reason. The boy writhed, cackling madly, clawing his own face, screaming, "Longer than you think. I saw. Longer than you think." The attendants recoiled. Some fled. The boy raved of endless time trapped inside, tormenting him beyond sanity. Mark screamed too, caught between horror and helplessness.